So there are many common misconceptions about restraint and seclusion. So we'll just cover a couple of them, but that restraints are something that's common and used in prevention-based pieces. That's a myth. It's not something that should be used in prevention. It's only something that should be used for a crisis prevention piece. Another misconception is that restraints don't happen in our schools. They only happen like when you see them in the movies and they're in a padded room, or that they are for students with serious emotional, behavioral disabilities, or that they're only used for students in special education. And those are also myths. They do happen and can look very different across various settings, across schools, residential, and youth treatment facilities as well. Another misconception about restraint and seclusion is that it's only a strategy that is there to support behavior change. So when students are restrained or secluded, that does not actually change their behavior. It is used as a reactionary piece in crisis prevention or crisis de-escalation strategies. The biggest misconception, I think, is just that, is that when you use a restraint or seclusion, that it will change the outcome of the situation. And often we know that, in fact, it does more harm than good in long term for our students. There is often trauma that is accrued from an experience of restraint or seclusion. There's also lost academic time, there's risk of injury, and the list goes on and on. So, what steps could schools take to reduce or eliminate the practice of restraints or seclusion? So there are three things we want to talk about: policy, professional development, and data collection. So when we're thinking about restraints and seclusions, first we need to know when are they happening, and that's our data collection. If you aren't actively collecting data, you may not actually know what the real prevalence is. So having a form that you go through, having a team that regularly reviews data that is accurate and reliable is really important to reducing the use of it. Following that is where you can see that you have policies. So a preventative and proactive policies for your district or your school or your state is imperative to help build that culture and climate around reducing the use of restraint and seclusion. Things like the use of positive behavior interventions and supports. How are you teaching and providing expectations and teaching those skills and reinforcing them to reduce the use of restraint and seclusion? And then finally, all of that comes together with how are you providing professional development? Is it ongoing professional development that is only on how to restrain? Then that becomes our only tool that we use. So we want to think about what is the professional development in alignment with our district policies and our school policies that is reflective of our data that says what we need for our teachers. Is it de-escalation strategies? Is it classroom management? What can we provide to allow for the reduction of restraint and seclusion? And then what does that need to look like? Is it a one-time only? Is it a coaching based? And what's going to actually make the greatest impact? And when you do all of those things together and really look at the data and the evaluation of whether or not they're working, that will be the beginning first steps of reducing the use of restraint and seclusion.